With me today, I have a brand new 2020 Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro. And yes, this is the very first year that the Sequoia gets the TRD Pro treatment. Now, Toyota made some big changes, including new wheels, new suspension, addition of a skid plate, exterior changes, new safety features, and a whole lot more. So is this the best Sequoia ever? That's what I'm here to find out. So in this review, learn everything there is to know about this brand new Sequoia TRD Pro so you can decide if this is the right SUV for you. Stay tuned. Now, first, I want to give a big shout out to Continental Toyota for making this video possible. So if you're in the market for a brand new or used Toyota, then definitely check out Continental Toyota. Their information is on the screen and also in the description of this video. Starting with the outside, the front end of this Sequoia TRD Pro gets a giant black grille stamped with Toyota on top, which makes it stand apart from the rest of the Sequoias. You also do get full LED headlights and a unique rigid industry LED fog lights. Now, the front end is simply massive, and anyone you tailgate will want to get out of the way quickly. On the bottom, you do get a large TRD stamped skid plate, and on this Sequoia TRD Pro, of course, you do get specially tuned Fox shocks and springs. Now, moving on to the side of the Sequoia, you get many changes, including those gorgeous looking 18-inch black BBS forged aluminum wheels. They really stand out. And plus, you can't miss that gigantic TRD black roof rack that spreads out the entire length of the roof. And you do get some rugged looking TRD running boards for easy access. Now, moving on to the backside, not much has changed. Everything is blacked out, including the TRD Pro badge. You also get integrated hitch, receiver, and connector, and this Sequoia TRD Pro can tow up to 7,100 pounds. Just like the 4Runners, the back window can slide all the way down. As for the engine, Toyota is sticking with the tried and true 5.7 liter I-Force V8 engine, pushing 381 horsepower and 401 pound-feet of torque. The engine is mated to a 6-speed automatic. As for the trunk, there's a good amount of space even with the third row up. On the left, there are seat controls. On the right, you have a 12V outlet, and the bottom cover reveals a massive hidden storage compartment. Now, to fold down the seats, you do have to hold down the button all the way through. Same thing when lifting them up. The downside to power folding is it does take some time to finish. Now, moving on to the second row, you are greeted with a set of large captain chairs covered with leather and red stitching. There's also plenty of space in between the chairs to get access to the third row. And speaking of the third row, it is big and wide and also covered in leather. Here is me in the third row behind the second row, all the way pushed back, and I still have a good 2 inches of legroom left and at least 6 inches of headroom. In the third row, on each side, you get 2 cup holders, a vent on top, and electronic controls to recline the seat forward and backwards. Now, to get out, you could either go in between the captain chairs or simply step on the lever beneath, which pushes the seat forward. As for the second row, there is a massive amount of room. With the seats all the way back, I have at least a foot of legroom and 6 inches of headroom. The seats slide forward and backwards and also recline in case you want to sleep. As for amenities, you get vents on top, a 12V outlet, climate controls, and a pair of cup holders. Next, let me show you all the features you get up front. Now that I'm up front, let me show you this cabin and some of the features you'll find in this TRD Pro. Starting with the steering wheel, I love this steering wheel. I just got done reviewing a 4Runner TRD Pro, and this steering wheel is identical to that one, and that's not a bad thing because I love that steering wheel and I love this one too. First of all, this leather that's wrapped on the steering wheel, very soft. It's not the real plasticky kind. I love this feel, and overall the thickness is also very good too. You can see the 10 and 2 spot, much thicker, and overall everywhere else it's the right thickness, and it just feels good. It's nice and soft. I'll let you guys know how this is once I start driving. Now the rest of this, very truck-like, right? But you know what? You're in a Sequoia, so there's nothing wrong with that. Let me show you the buttons. These are all for your radio station volume, scrolling through different kind of modes, right? Down here, your phone controls. Now over here, this is all to control that infotainment screen over there. There's a lot of features in there. I'll show you that in a little bit. And down here, there's some safety features that you can turn on or off. But again, let me show you. They're all in here. So take a look at the gauge cluster. Obviously, the speedometer, tachometer, those are still analog. But you do have this nice infotainment screen in the middle. Gives you a lot of info that you can scroll left and right. So you could have a digital speedometer, your range, trip computer, stuff like that. But you also get a compass, your music. This is for some of the safety features that's on or off, right? And then your TPMS, and then over here, messages. And then you go into settings. This is where you can see all the stuff, including lane departure assist. That's standard on here. Pre-collision system, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert. Those are the safety features that you get now on the Sequoia TRD Pro, which is really, really nice. And there's other things that you could change in here, and each one of these you can scroll up or down. It just depends on what you're looking for. For example, time until rest. It'll let you know when you need to rest. But you also do see a few more analog gauges there for battery, your fuel, your temperature, and oil temperature. So this is pretty standard, but I do like this little screen. Gives you a lot of information. Now moving on to the left side, mirror control, light control, then auto high beam. That is also standard now. And this is for the power tailgate. This side, this is pretty standard. Auto up and down only for the driver and passenger, not for the rear passengers. Now, moving to the infotainment in the center here, you got a lot of big knobs, right? Reminds me of a Tundra. And you know what? Again, I like the look. I like the look in a Sequoia. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, this infotainment screen, this is brand new. It's a 7-inch touchscreen. Now, I would have preferred if Toyota put in the 8-inch one. It's a little bit bigger. So the 7-inch on this dash just kind of looks kind of small, right? Take a look at it. So I wish it was an 8-inch, but it is a combination of touchscreen and buttons, and it's pretty responsive. So it comes with JBL speakers, navigation, so that's all included. But if you go into the menu here, so for example, you go to apps, you do have Wi-Fi. This is also Apple CarPlay, Android Auto standard. It's compatible, so there's no problems with that. You go back to menu, you go to setup. You know, see, the touchscreen is pretty responsive, so there's no worries about it being laggy or anything. I will say though, it is fingerprint prone. I already see a few fingerprints on here, so you do have to watch out for that. But overall, I think this is pretty easy and it's pretty bright. And of course, you do have the the volume knob and the scroll knob, so no worries there. Hazard light over here, engine start stop, parking sensors on or off, traction control. This is to control that giant window in the tailgate, auto up and down. This is the 4-wheel drive setup. So it's a little bit easier than the ones that you will find in a 4Runner or a Tacoma, but it still works the same way. By default, you're in 2-wheel drive, 2-wheel rear wheel drive. Now you could go into 4 high or 4 low, but if you go into 4 low, it does turn some of the safety features off. And how you would do it is basically you will want to go into neutral, put the Sequoia in neutral, then you could go into 4 high like that and just kind of wait for it. So you see in the gauge right there, it's 4 high and it's just kind of blinking. There we go. So now engaged. When 4-wheel drive engages, you'll feel it. There's like a little click and there's a whining sound that goes on, so you can actually hear it engage. Now if you want to go into 4 low, you have to press it down and move over. You'll hear the car beep at you and it says 4 low. This is where you have to go into neutral now and wait for it. And it'll do its thing, and then you'll see VCS turned off, pre-collision brake system unavailable. So there are some sacrifices when you are in 4 low. Now to get back, you have to go into 4 high again and then wait for that, okay? So now the 4-low disappear, and now you could go into 2-wheel drive like so. So it is a little bit more complicated than what I like to see, but this is how traditional 4-wheel drive system works. Now, the rest of these are all for climate control. So you have auto right here, and you can turn the fan up and down through this. Now this is control the temperature for driver, passenger for the rear is over here. Okay, and then you got some manual functions in terms of the modes, defrosters, and all that good stuff. Now down here you have heated seats, right? There is no ventilated seats on this TRD Pro, but you do get heated seats. And down here you got 2 USB ports and then another USB port. This is more like the media port, but you can still use it to charge. It just doesn't have the fast charging like these ones. So 3 USB ports and then a 12V outlet. Now over here, this is where it gets interesting. So by default, you have 3 cup holders, 2 very large ones and a small one. And then you have this placeholder, which is kind of weird, but you could open this up and then you can see it's pretty deep. You could put like magazines, your notebook, your laptop. And then if you wanted more storage room, you could pull this out completely. And take a look. So now you just have a whole bunch of space. Although it looks kind of ugly that way, you can't cover it up. But Toyota designed it so that you can pull that out and do whatever you want down there. So that's kind of unique, I guess. Now you got some room here for your change. Oh, let's not forget you got tow mode over here, and then this is to lock your center differential. Now, this is a standard shifter. This is as easy as it gets, but up here you do see TRD, so that looks pretty cool. This is a 6-speed automatic, and you do have manual shifting if you wanted to. There's no paddle shifters in here, but if you want to manual shift, you can, although I don't know why you would need to. Now, this is astronomical, this armrest, okay? The center console, it is huge, huge, okay? So take a look. There's many departments, one there, one in the middle, one over here. You got another 12V outlet on the side here, and a tray that you can just pull out if you wanted to. So this is absolutely huge. You can fit whatever you wanted in there. I mean, it is really, really big. You know, you could sit up here too if you wanted to. All right, moving on, you got some home link buttons. This is the SOS, and also some controls to power this, the power sunroof. Now it's not panoramic, it's not available. This is the only option you get. The seats, they have TRD Pro stitched on the headrest, and then you do have this leather. I think it's leather. It feels leathery, but it could be some type of pleather. But you do see the red stitching on the side, and that matches the stitching on the back, and overall it looks pretty good. And then take a look at the door panel, pretty standard, not a lot going on. Then moving on to the dash, of course the dash, you see this, the infotainment, the large knobs, right? And then you move on to the gauge cluster and the steering wheel. Overall, it's not a bad cabin. I actually think this is very truck-like, right? With some sophistication, and I think it does match the Sequoia's personality really well. So next, let's go for a drive and see how this is on the roads. All right, it's time to go for a drive. Let's see how this Sequoia TRD Pro handles the roads. First impression is how high you sit up. There's a reason why Toyota added those TRD running boards, because frankly, it's really hard to get up here unless you're really tall. For most people, you're going to appreciate that they are there, because you are sitting extremely high up. And for me, I like it. I like it a lot. I think a lot of you guys will too. Now, in terms of overall ground clearance, it's over 10 inches. So you do have a lot of ground clearance, but besides that, you're definitely sitting really high up on the Sequoia, and I'm enjoying this view. For being such a large truck that's coming in almost 6,000 pounds, it is surprisingly light and smooth when you're driving it. It's really surprising. The throttle, you know, there's no sport mode you have to worry about, but the throttle is very light, and just with the tad, I mean, this V8 is pushing the Sequoia forward. I mean, it gets up to speed really quick. Steering wheel, it's really light. It's much lighter than what you would expect. You really figured that this would be like a real, you know, tough car or a tough SUV to drive. It's not. You get in here, it just feels like a small, nimble crossover SUV, although you're sitting like 10 feet in the air and this is like 6,000 pounds. Now, what else I'm loving is the suspension. The suspension is really soft and really comfortable. Really comfortable. I'm really surprised by it. Because TRD, this is the TRD Pro. Toyota obviously tuned the suspension, has TRD shocks with specially tuned springs, and it makes the Sequoia feel so comfortable. The suspension is so soft because it's meant to go off-road. It's meant to have a lot of travel, right? Especially if you're going on rocks or places where, you know, there's a lot of dips and valleys and all that. You know, because of that, on-road behavior is simply awesome. All right, now let's see how good this turning radius is, because I have a feeling it's gonna be really bad. All right, so this is where I usually make all my U-turns here. Wow, take a look. I made it on the first try. I didn't have to reverse. So I'm not gonna lie, it's not the best, but it's actually better than I expected, so that's good. Now, one thing that I do like is the fact that the exhaust is not as loud and as drony as the 4Runner, because even though the 4Runner TRD Pro that I just tested, you know, upon startup and anytime you give it a little gas, you do hear that throaty exhaust. I'm guessing that if you have a lot of stop and go traffic or you're going highways for long periods of time, that might get a bit tiring. So in the Sequoia, it's not nearly as loud or as drony. In fact, in terms of just noise level, it's really quiet. It's really quiet. I do hear the exhaust a little bit, but not nearly as much as the 4Runner. And overall, you know what? It's just a quiet ride. You know, I don't hear much wind noise. In fact, very little. And in terms of road noise, also very little. So if it wasn't just for just the exhaust, I really can't hear anything. Now, while I'm sitting here, let's talk about visibility. Now, visibility is quite good. I will say, though, the front hood is quite high. So to clearly see over it, you have to really raise your seat up like this, which then becomes a little bit uncomfortable. In my sitting position right now, I could see okay, but overall the windshield is really big. The side windows are really big. Now the back window, the third row headrest, they do block the visibility a little bit, but in the middle it's okay. So overall visibility is pretty good, except seeing over your hood. All right, let's see how acceleration is now. Hey, that's not bad. That's not bad in this in the 6,000 pound SUV. There's definitely nothing wrong with this V8 other than fuel economy. You get a combined of 14. So yeah, there's that. But outside of that, you got plenty of grunt. Over 400 pound-feet of torque, over 380 horsepower. So getting up to speed, passing, definitely not a problem. This is not a slow SUV. This is actually much faster than some of the compact SUVs I've tested, which is way smaller and weighs a lot lighter. So this definitely has plenty of grunt. Yeah, I mean, you know, this freeway that I'm taking, you know, I test a lot of cars on this freeway. There's a lot of, you know, bumps. There's a lot of little divots or, you know, just imperfections on this freeway. And you know what? This suspension is so soft. I don't feel any of it. I don't. It just like, this suspension just like goes over everything like it's nothing. It's like butter smooth. I love this suspension. I'm sure it's great off-road, which Unfortunately, I can't test right now because there's really nowhere I could go off-road with, but I can test this bumpy freeway and I hardly feel anything. It's really good. Now, in terms of steering, the steering wheel, like I expected, the steering wheel is really nice. I really like the thickness and the feel of the steering wheel. Now, in terms of just the steering feel, it is very light. And I mentioned that before, so it makes you feel like this is a very nimble SUV, but I will say that because of how light it is, I find myself always trying to correct, especially on that freeway, getting up to speed at 60 miles per hour. I'm finding that because it's so light, there is a lot of play. Take a look. I have quite a lot of play in the steering wheel. It's not the most precise steering feel. And I do find that I'm always trying to correct myself while I'm just trying to stay in the middle of the lane. The brakes feel good too. I don't feel like I have a hard time stopping this beast. I mean, the brakes really does its job, and the feel, just a normal feel. You don't have to put extra pressure on it or anything like that. It catches on when you expect it. So the brakes are really good. No complaints. So those of you guys that are not familiar with driving larger SUVs or trucks, it'll take some time to get used to it. But once you do, it's quite nice. It's quite nice. You know, a lot of manufacturers now have like these crazy automatics. 8-speed, 9-speed, 10-speed, right? And I've tested out some of these 9-speed and 10-speeds in their mission to improve fuel economy. You know, when you're going at low speeds, they all shift up to like 9th gear or 10th gear to try to maximize fuel economy. And it just makes the car really weak, feels bogged down, like it's underpowered, even though it shouldn't be. But you don't get that in the 6-speed. I know that fuel economy isn't the greatest, but you know, I don't get any sense of lack of power in any gear. You know, it's just like it works. It's smooth. I don't notice the shifts at all, and I think it just gets the job done. I think this is the reason why Toyota a lot of times are behind the ball on some of these things, because you know what? Because it just works. There's no need to improve upon it. So that's why they want to stay with the tried and true. And this 6-speed automatic with this V8, this 5.7 liter V8, this is a good combination, and it just works well together. As for trim levels for the Sequoia, for 2020 there are 5 trim levels, and the TRD Pro comes in under the Platinum trim, and it starts at $64,000. Lastly, let's talk about the good and bad to this brand new Sequoia TRD Pro. Starting with the good, the TRD exterior styling changes is definitely good. There's a huge amount of interior space in all 3 rows. There's a powerful V8 engine with a smooth transmission. There is comfortable and adjustable seats in pretty much every row. The TRD Pro suspension definitely provides a very comfortable ride, and overall the Sequoia TRD Pro is very quiet. As for the bad, visually, this Sequoia TRD Pro is not as bold as, say, the 4Runner or Tacoma TRD Pro. It is also very expensive, it does not do well with fuel economy, there are no USB ports in the 2nd or 3rd row, and finally the steering is too light and there is too much steering play. I'm giving the Sequoia TRD Pro an overall score of 96. If you want to see how this Sequoia TRD Pro compares to its peers, then check out driversonlyrankings.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and check out some of these other videos.